Hello, Dr. Cisse covering anatomy and physiology. Today we'll talk about the cranial nerves. The name and numbers, where they originate, where they terminate, and their function. Now, if you look at this picture, you see the brain here with a lot of yellow lines. These represent the cranial nerves. We're looking at the inferior view of the brain with the frontal lobe in the front. You see the eye bulb here. Then you see the pons, the medulla oblongata, the cerebellum. At the bottom, you see the spinal cord. We'll talk about each nerve here, each cranial nerve, and their function. Now, first, let's introduce to the nervous system. Let's talk about the nervous system in general. The nervous system is divided into two parts: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is composed of the brain and the spinal cord, in blue here. And the peripheral nervous system is composed of all the peripheral nerves, all the nerves that come out of the brain and out of the spinal cord. When the nerves come out of the spinal cord, we call it spinal nerve. We have 31 pairs, meaning on each side here, of spinal nerves. If the nerves come out of the brain, we call it a cranial nerve. We have 12 of them. Now, based on the function, whether it's motor or sensory or mixed, we have 12 different cranial nerves we're talking about. If it's a motor fiber, it means that the brain stem, where it's coming from, we have nerves that come out of the brain stem that will innervate specific organs, such as glands and muscles. But if it's sensory, it means that we have sensory neurons making a large sensory nerve fiber that will run from those organs on the neck, in the head area, to the brainstem to inform the brainstem. So the brainstem is the location where most cranial nerves will originate from. Then most of these nerves are ipsilateral nerve. It means that they work on organs on the same side. Exceptions are the optic nerve and the trochlear. They go to the other side, called contralateral side. Now, which are the 12 cranial nerves? The number 1, olfactory. Number 2, optic. Number 3, oculomotor. Number 4, trochlear. Number 5, trigeminal. Number 6, abducens. Number 7, facial. Number 8, vestibulocochlear. Number 9, glossopharyngeal. Number 10, vagus. Number 11, accessory. Number 12, hypoglossal. Now, where do they come from? The brainstem. You can see here the brain has 3 parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. At the bottom, you see the spinal cord will go down. And then the brain, cerebrum, has different lobes, like temporal lobe, frontal lobe, occipital lobe, parietal lobe. And you can see gyri, sulcus here, right? The groove, the big groove here, lateral sulcus, and cerebellum in the back. But today we're going to be focused on the brainstem, which is part of the brain. Now, how are we going to remember these names? We made an acronym during this coronavirus confinement. Oh, okay. True talk about furious virus going viral across humanity. Oh, okay. True talk about furious virus going viral across humanity. So this is going to tell us, because these acronyms are just the first letter of the name of the nerves, right? So we can practice a little bit and move on. Now let's talk about it. You see that I put some in green, some in black, some in red? The sensory, the cranial nerves that have sensory fibers that only feel things are in green. Those are olfactory, optic, and vestibulocochlear. Now, the ones that are motor, I put them in red here: oculomotor, trochlear, abducens, accessory, and hypoglossal. Now let's see. So the sensories are 1, 2, and 8. In our acronym, we'll be, oh, okay, virus. Then the motor are 3, 4, 6, 11, and 12. In our acronym, will be, okay, true about humanity. And the mixed nerves are 5, 7, 9, and 10. In our acronym, will be talk furious going viral. So if you think about it, each nerve will have a function that I'll put here, like a smell. It will have where it starts and where it ends. You will see if it's a sensory, it will start at the specific organ, gland, or an area. It will end in the brain because it has to sense to the brain. If it's motor, it will start from the brain coming back because the motor will give a command for something to be done. So of course, this one, olfactory nerve number 1, is a sensory. What sense? The sense of smell. It starts at the olfactory mucosa, which is the lining of the nose, inside the nose when you smell something, and it ends in the olfactory bulb. Olfactory nerve, nerve number 1. Nerve number 2, the optic nerve. For what? Vision. Where does it start? Since it's a sensory, it will start from somewhere to go to the brain. The retina of the eye to the thalamus and the midbrain. That's going to be optic nerve number 2. You see the eye bulb here? You see the optic nerve. And here you see at the optic chiasm, the nerve will decussate, it will cross over. It means that you have part of the eye that will be innervated by nerves coming from the other side of the brain. So it's crossing over. The nerve number 3 is the oculomotor nerve. You can see the name, oculomotor, moving the eye. So it's eye movement. Since it's a movement, it's a motor. It makes you do something. Where does it start? In the midbrain, which is part of the brainstem, right? The brainstem. And then where does it end? In the muscle in the eyes. The muscles in the eye. But which muscles? The superior, medial, and inferior rectus muscles. So the superior rectus, which is on the top, the inferior rectus at the bottom, and the middle rectus is going to be in the middle side of the eye. The inferior oblique, you can see that you can follow that here, right? And then the ciliary muscle, this is the ciliary ganglia here, inside the muscle here. And the levator palpebral superioris, the upper eyelid. Oculomotor nerve number 3. The trochlear nerve, trochlear, is also a movement, is a motor nerve. It innervates the superior oblique muscle. Since it's a motor, it has to come from the brain. It will come from the midbrain. And where does it end? The superior oblique muscle. It's going to make you look to the side, up to the side. The trigeminal nerve, nerve number 5. The function, touch, temperature, and pain. It is the largest cranial nerve. Trigeminal 3 division. Ophthalmic, maxillary, mandibular. Ophthalmic is sensory, feeling something in the eye. Maxillary, sensory, feeling something in the upper jaw. But mandibular is mixed. Why? Because the mandible can move. It is the only articulation on the face. So for mastication, for chewing, we have to be able to move our jaw. So they're gonna feel temperature, touch, and pain in both ophthalmic and maxillary division and mandibular. In addition, we have mastication. These are the trigeminal nerve division. You see one going up, ophthalmic, the other one going to the maxilla, and the other one going to the mandible. So for the sensory feeling, it will come from the face to the pons. You see the pons here, part of the brainstem. For the motor, it will come from the pons to the face, right? So you can see the branches. For the motor one, the muscle that will be innervated will be the masseter, the digastric muscle, the medial pterygoid, the lateral pterygoid, and the temporalis here. Why? Because when you move your mouth and eat, these are the neuron fiber forming the nerves that will come innervate these muscles so they can move. Trigeminal. You can see here on the right, the first division ophthalmic is going to be on your face forward, forehead here. The VIII, which is maxillary, and then the VIII, the mandibular. So trigeminal, three divisions. The next one is the abducens nerve. This one is also for the eye movement. So you can see it's the red is motor, but lateral movement. It innervates the lateral rectus muscle of the eye. Where does it originate? From the inferior of the pons, so below the pons. Abducens number 6. Number 7 is the facial nerve. You can see it's in black, that means a mixed facial nerve. Number 7 is the mixed nerve. What does it do? Taste and gland secretion. You can see that the taste is a feeling, so it'll be sensory. Gland secretion is an action, it'll be a motor. So the sensory will be the taste on the 2/3 part of the tongue, right? Interior 2/3. But the motor, it will be facial expression, like moving your face, salivary gland, anterior gland, nasal and palatine gland. So it means things that are secreted inside the mouth, inside the nose, or inside the eye. The secretion, the gland will be motor because it will tell those organs to do something, the motor. You can see the facial nerve has temporal, zygomatic, buccal, mandibular, and cervical branches. If you look at it here, the facial nerve, you see, it has many branches going to the face, going to the eye, going to the nose, and different location. So the taste bud to the thalamic will be the sensory, from the taste cells on the tongue to the thalamus. But the motor, which is telling to do something, comes from the pons to muscles and gland, the muscle of mastication. So that's facial nerve. Number 8 is the vestibulocochlear nerve for hearing and equilibrium. Like when you have a balance, it's because of the vestibulocochlear nerve. The sensory, where do you feel? You feel the on the cochlea, the vestibule. So you see the cochlea looks like a snail, the vestibule, like the entrance to the cochlea, and then the semicircular duct. These are the semicircular duct. In inner ear, so it's not the middle ear, right? This is going to be the inner ear, right here, inner. This is the middle, this is the outer ear. So where does it come from? The pons. The pons is the origin of it to the air cell in the inner. So for the motor, of course, it has to come from the brain to tell you what to do. So here you can see the vestibular ganglia, the vestibular nerve right here, the cochlear nerve, and the two together are the vestibulocochlear nerve, nerve number 8. Nerve number 9, the glossopharyngeal nerve, nerve number 9. It does both, right? It has sensory and it has the motor. The sensory will be the taste, the touch, the pressure, pain, and temperature, right? And it also regulates blood pressure and respiration. Now, what is the motor function here? Glossopharyngeal does what? Salivation, swallowing, and gagging. Okay? This should be black. Salivation, swallowing, gagging. So here, okay, we made it black here, the glossopharyngeal nerve, because it's a mixed nerve. Number 9. So the sensory part is the pharynx, the middle and outer ear, right? The middle and outer ear. The posterior 1/3 of the tongue to where? Medulla and pons. So we get information to the medulla and pons, but the motor comes from the medulla to parotid, salivary gland, and stylopharyngeal muscle. Okay, these are the carotid sinus here. You see the pharyngeal muscle. So the nerve, the glossopharyngeal, glosso means tongue, glossal, and pharyngeal means the pharynx, right? Here. So the tongue and the pharynx nerve, basically. That's number 9. Number 10 is the vagus nerve. The function is the most extensive distribution of any cranial nerve. Look at that. Taste, sensation of hunger, fullness, gastrointestinal dysfunction, all those are determined by the vagus. It's a very long nerve. So it's swallowing, speech, regulation on viscera. So damage caused hoarseness of the or loss of voice, impaired swallowing, and fatal if both occur. So this one is life depending type of nerve. The sensory start at the viscera. It means the internal organ feeling information going to the brain will come from the these organs through the vagus to the brain. The pharynx, the larynx, the epiglottis, the outer ear, the dura mater, all those will end where? In the medulla oblongata. Then the motor, for the stomach to do something, for the heart to beat, for things to be done in the body, it will start from the medulla oblongata, ending in the tongue, palate, pharynx, larynx, lungs, heart, liver, spleen, digestive system, kidney, and ureter. So you got all the digestive system here, right? The small, the colon, everything. So the vagus nerve is a very large nerve. So that's why it kind of innervated all these internal organs. Then the 11, the accessory nerve. The accessory nerve is actually a spinal nerve. It's like at the border. That's why it goes back into the skull and come back out. So that one starts at C1 to C6. Where does it end? The palate, the pharynx, and also what? The trapezius and the sternocleidomastoid muscle, right here. So accessory is right here at the bottom on C1, the cervical, right? And C6, cervical 6. So these are basically coming from the spinal cord, but going back to the brain and come back. So the fiber is coming in and out. Swallowing, the accessory, number 11. And number 12 is the hypoglossal nerve. It's a tongue movement of speech when you're talking or manipulating food. Where does it start? In the medulla oblongata. Where does it end? Intrinsic and extrinsic muscle of the tongue. Hypo means below, glossal means the tongue, below the tongue. That's the last nerve. So to conclude, the 12 cranial nerves, let's practice. Okay. True talk about fierce virus going viral across humanity. You can see here the olfactory, optic, olfactory, haptic, and then you see the oculomotor, trochlear, right, and trigeminal, right here. Trigeminal, you see trigeminal, 3-part. The number 6, you see the abducens, the facial, vestibulocochlear. Then you see the glossopharyngeal, then the vagus, number 10, vagus right here. That's why they put this hard in the digestive system here. And then the accessory and hypoglossal. Now, let's practice one more time. Olfactory, optic, oculomotor, trochlear, trigeminal, abducens, facial, vestibulocochlear, glossopharyngeal, vagus, accessory, hypoglossal. So when you look at this one, the last one, you see the frontal lobe of the brain. You see the olfactory here, the optic here, the oculomotor here, trochlear, trigeminal. See the trigeminal, they put the 3 pits here, trigeminal. You see the abducens, You see the facial here, the vestibulocochlear, also the glossopharyngeal, the vagus, the hypoglossal, the accessory. Of course, you see the cerebellum, the spinal cord, the medulla, and the pons, right? Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in class.